Going to show live. Yeah, there we are. And we are live right now. And this is Angie Rossi.
Hi, everybody.
You're going to
It's
see
great to be with you, Lisa. It's great to
on, the,
be with
on,
you.
on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll be able to see the comments if you click on comments too. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
you're
I don't
like,
know.
what? I'll read some if somebody says. But I wanted to start off with when I put out there that you were going to be on today, people went bananas. And this is just some of the comments I put. I love Angie Rossi, miss him with our company so much. This is Norma Grider. You'll probably recognize some of these names.
Oh,
Um,
gosh.
love Angie, Joanna Niederheiser. Angie was well loved by his Avon family. Karen Schnelly, remember Karen
Can,
and
can
Rodney?
I stop you? Can I go get my wife? Can I go get her?
Yeah.
You want her to hear these things.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine that must be hard to go from being adored by the masses to
Then, yeah, we're celebrating our
to
49th next month, but I
oh,
tell her all the time, things were good at Avon. People like me.
honey, take the garbage out on the way to that board meeting, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Oh, yeah, see, everybody's writing in the comments. Yeah, Kimberly Sandridge from Richmond. Yay. Oh, Janet Metzger. Remember Janet Metzger? She was,
That
yeah.
little Italian, I
Yeah.
know, but she's probably sitting courtside at those Wisconsin Badger basketball games still, I'll tell you what.
Her and I reconnected lately. When she was a division manager, I actually did some speaking for her out there, and she's working on a new project. So I was
That's
helping
very
her.
good.
We were helping each other lately. So
Very,
yay,
very
she
good.
was on.
That's good.
Oh, in this one, Luann Lynch said, "Love this man. I walked with him in the first Avon 3-day walk in New York in
How
1999."
about that? Ooh, blisters on the feet. Ooh.
Oh, I did like 3 of those 3-day walks, and what
Oh,
was I
Lisa.
thinking? I didn't
Oh.
train. I did no training. I just showed up and thought, well, I'll muscle out whatever I can muscle.
But did you sleep in the tent?
Yes,
See,
that was
I didn't sleep in the tent. I didn't sleep.
oh,
I snuck out. I snuck out to a nearby hotel.
oh, no, that was smart though. No, I talked some friends into doing it with me, and that one friend reminds me to this day. She wasn't a representative; she was just a friend of mine. And in the middle of the night, she woke up and she had to go to the portalettes, and she on her way to the portalette, she would, "I hate you, Lisa Wilber." Yeah, she never let me live that down.
That's funny. That's funny.
So, you know what I wanted to talk about first? This is funny. I'm not sure I remember where I met you originally. Was it at the branch? Do you know?
Well, yeah, I would say, when you turn 70, things get a little vague in the distance, you know what I mean? But Lisa, I would tell the folks who are on live stream here, I remember vividly when I was a division manager in the Patriot Division, which was up in your neck of the woods. It was
Literally.
central Mass up into New Hampshire, and met you briefly. But then the first time I recall was some of those first Avon recognition trips, some of your first trips that were there, and some of the first national trips you arrived at, and people were wondering, who's Lisa Wilber? Where, New Hampshire? What is that all about? But how quickly they learned, and then that was in the early '90s, as I recall, and then of
Yeah.
course our relationship kind of blossomed. We had our moments, both
How did you
positively
get?
and.
I always thought you got assigned to me somehow. They're like, we can't deal with her. We need one person. You do it. Is that
It
what
was
happened?
a developmental move for me. Okay, no, that wasn't it at all. But for folks on board, I mean, I often said to you in Virginia, to your mom, I remember when, and it's when your business was so small, and you had this vision that you were going to grow it, and it begat so many different things: huge downline organization, the winner in you, all the things that have made Lisa Wilber the great success she is today.
You know what's funny is when I went down to the branch that time, I was in my 20s. I didn't know about the pecking order. And
Doesn't matter.
but I guess I didn't realize my naiveness has helped me in a lot of ways, but this wasn't one of them. But everybody, like your direct reports, the managers were all like kissing your ring and stuff. And I didn't understand
No,
because to
please.
me, oh, like that wasn't happening. You're like, they would come up, well, anyway, come up and
It
pay
really
homage.
wasn't happening, folks. Come on.
Oh, but I didn't understand because to me, I did business with other companies, and to me, you were a man that worked at the company that I did business with. I didn't see it as a pecking order situation, but I was alone in that thought.
Well, but you know, back in that day, and it's interesting how things kind of evolved from there, Lisa, because you know, when I joined the company in '83 in operations, and boy, there truly was a pecking order. And believe it or not, for folks who may be relatively new to Avon, it was a predominantly male pecking order too. I mean, the concept of a female in a senior management position was just really foreign. But you know, by the time, you know, that was in my first couple of years in operations, but in sales, well, I'll tell you what, I think those of us who were most successful understood intuitively that it really wasn't about a pecking order. We often talked about how we flipped that triangle, and you know, instead of representatives being at the base going up to senior management, it was the other way around. Representatives were the ones who, in the Avon that I knew and loved, were, you know, central to everything we did. So I think we learned that rapidly. That was part of our learning process in the evolution of Avon. And gosh, there are folks that joined the company in the late '90s. They would never believe that males dominated the company throughout the '60s, '70s, and '80s. It just wasn't the way it was in the latter years.
Well, and the early CEOs I remember were all like Jim Preston. Yeah, and the right. I met him on one of the early trips too. That was funny. I was wearing
And
big giant
he made an
glasses.
impression. He made an impression too.
I'll bet. No, and what was funny is I always got mixed messages from the local manager compared to on the national level. So like decorate my car. That was something I did early on because I saw the companies doing it. And my local district manager said I couldn't do it. And I said, where'd you see that? I don't see that written anywhere. So then she was unhappy with me. But then I was in that booklet from Jim Preston's contest I won for the
Yeah,
car thing. So it was
exactly
always
right.
like that. Yeah, it was always like that. So I didn't know you started in operations. I did know somebody told me that you used to be a coach, a real coach. Was it high school
A
or
real coach.
a real?
Yeah.
I mean, we look at
You
you as a
know,
coach in Avon, but you were a coach, like hired coach,
no,
right?
actually, it's the progression I made in my career. Jackie and I got married back in '72. And I know many of the folks who are watching had a chance to meet my wife. We're really doing well, and I'm still blessed to have her. She puts up with a lot for 49 years. But when we were first married, I got my master's degree in education. I was a guidance counselor, and I was a guidance
Oh,
counselor, and surprise, surprise. And I was a basketball coach at an all boys Catholic high school back in Delaware. So I did that for 10 years. And
wow.
so that was the foundation of my career. I was a counselor, a teacher, and a coach. And then I was recruited to Avon. And, you know, the paychecks back in the early '80s weren't great in education. So I went to Avon on a lark, really. The head of, a guy by the name of Charlie Pinto was the head of HR. Basketball fans said, you would really do well at Avon. And we'd like you to go to the field. And I'm like,
Sorry about the dog.
oh, that's okay.
Hey, hey.
And when he said field, I was like, nah, you know what? The only field I really want to go to is the softball field out there. I really don't know the field. But so I was in operations in the old Newark branch for 3 years, then became a division manager, Brooklyn and Queens, Paramount Division, and then Patriot Division. And then, you know, the litany of other roles that were all part of my development leading up to leadership roles, both in the US and China and global. So that's it. But I'm a teacher and a coach at heart. So I come by this stuff honestly. I never was a numbers cruncher, although I kind of learned that, but it was more about development of people, coaching to skill sets, and playing to strengths, developing weaknesses and things like that, or expanding on weaknesses. That was what I did.
You know, it's funny. One of the things I wanted to make sure we talked about was, as a representative, we only see, like if somebody's doing needlework tapestry, you see one side. You have to turn it over to see the other side.
Right.
As representatives, we get mad about changes and stuff because we don't see the other side. You know what I mean? And you would not believe how long it took me to to admit that. I'd get mad about something, and then now I think, well, I wonder what the reason for that is. Maybe it cost too much. Maybe they had trouble with their vendor. I think of all the things that it could be. But early on, I just thought, these people are stupid.
Well, by the way, I think you said that to me at one point. I'm not sure.
Oh, sadly, I believe that.
No. But, Lisa, seriously, that's an interesting point because, no matter what in this business that we're in, you're working for a company, and depending upon where they stand in their pecking order, are they a public company? Are they publicly traded? Do they have to answer to shareholders? Are they privately owned? Are they answering to the family who owns the business? Inevitably, it's a business. And decisions have to be made no differently than with you, whether it's in your downline, you're making decisions all along.
Yeah.
All along the way. And there are a myriad of reasons, as you mentioned, why something is minor as why did that lipstick look like that on that page? Well, somebody made a mistake, somebody overlooked it, something happened at the printer, blah, blah, blah. But inevitably, it was all intended to support the representative, at least in the days that I was there. And your point, though, about it really dives deeper in my mind, Lisa, and that is the education that you and I got to a different place in our relationship based on conversations that we had when questions were asked and answers were given, whether you liked the answers or not, and whether I liked the questions or not. No, but the point was, as entrepreneurs in this business, and for folks that are on the call, either growing a business or having a big business, your ability to sit down with your I know you use the word corporate a lot. I always felt that was kind of corporate. I think I was corporate. But
and sadly, that's how I meant it too.
No, I know.
I'm so horrible. I'm a bad person.
No, by the way, for the folks that are watching, we do love each other. Okay, we have a big history, and it goes back. I mentioned 32 years I've known Lisa Wilber, so it's been kind of like this. But no, Lisa, to your point, I think the word to folks listening is, you should feel comfortable. Comfortable is probably the wrong word. It's your right to sit down with your management team, your corporate team, just to get an understanding, to your point. Well, why was that decision made? And one that cuts to the quick is saying, whether it was with you, whether it was Vondell or Dan and Jackie or Peter and Bernadette, there was always the questions about, why is the compensation model like this? Why don't we get more? And, so the understanding of how a comp model is built, how it's executed within whatever company you're with, not just in Avon, that's important for you to know, because then you kind of disseminate that information to your downline too when the same kind of questions come up. But I think we evolved there, Lisa, as a company, from speaking of Avon. In the beginning, we weren't good at that because we had come from a single earning, there was no Avon ACE leadership as it is evolving.
Right.
John Fleming. It was just, you wanted to earn more, you sold more. Brian Connolly's old line, you wanted to earn a whole lot more? Well, you better sell a whole lot more. It had nothing to do with the development of people. But the evolution of Avon along this very line, Lisa, of open communication, dialogue, and understanding why decisions are made, and dialing back the intensity level when people were upset. That's the kind of stuff we focused on all the time.
Well, and to what I try to, circulate is that even if you're going to laugh at this, even if corporate is not communicating with us, it's on us to just try to make the most money. We're business owners, make the most money with whatever's coming at us. So if that's the way it is, say you're unhappy, but move along, because I see so many people get mad and quit, or get mad and don't do anything waiting for it to change back or waiting for it to change. You might as well just plow ahead because it might not ever change the way you're hoping for. You might as well just absorb the change and move along.
Yeah, you're right. In many regards, one of the hardest conversations I had were with top sellers and top leadership, senior executive unit leaders, where, the company wasn't going to move. I couldn't necessarily say I didn't agree or disagree. My position was just to move the business forward. And can we accept the fact that we're never going to agree on this? And ultimately, you tell me you want to quit? I don't think you're telling me you want to quit. How can we move forward under the guidelines that we're operating now and help you grow your business, make money, and help the people in your downlines earn the same kind of money? So that was the philosophy that, whether it was, Fleming, Connolly, Rossi, Sutej, and we kind of evolved that in the U.S. business. And I think we want to continue. Were we perfect? No. Do we make mistakes? Yes. But I think we got a whole lot better in that regard too.
Oh, absolutely.
But that tapestry you mentioned about looking at the other side, it's important. It's important for corporate leaders to understand that too, because let's face it, we're only looking at our side of the tapestry, which is, what are your KPIs? What are your profits? What's it look like, excuse me, for the next quarter, for the next half a year? What am I going to say to Wall Street? That's the side we look at. And it's important for those leaders on the corporate side to look at the tapestry from the other side also, which is from the independent contractor side.
Oh, I have got to tell you, you haven't been following along with the products or anything, right?
No, I haven't. Although, I said it's 70. I'm really 80. I've been using a nuke for many years.
I got to send you down some goodies. That'll solve you.
I always welcome those care packages.
So they're trying different stuff, which to their credit, they need to, because they need to make money to stay open in the U.S., of course. But a funny thing happened last summer that I want to share with you. Everybody listening knows where I'm going with this, because I've told a couple other people that used to be with Avon Corporate, and it's kind of funny. So they're on the virtual convention last summer, right? And they come out with this bottle, and it's kind of like old timey. And it's a peacock with the things. Oh, you know where this is going.
No, I don't.
It's cute, and Michael Senstedt comes out with it, and he's doing a thing, and he and I'm thinking to myself, when you're watching like an infomercial, you're thinking of the price. I'm thinking to myself, you know what? If that's $24.95, I'm in all day long. I'll be able to sell the heck out of that. And then he keeps talking, so I'm thinking, maybe it's more. And then I'm thinking, $34.95. If that's $34.95, I'm still in. I am still in. $34.95. Guess how much it was?
Probably 50.
Yeah, no.
How much?
1,500.
There was a product in an Avon brochure that was $1,500.
Yes, sir.
How many units did they sell?
Yes, sir.
Probably a little bit in the warehouse on that one, eh?
No, I guess it was the shock of it that was unusual.
What was it, Lisa? Seriously, what was it? Again,
it was a perfume bottle shaped like a peacock. It was gold plated, I think, and it had crystals on it. But it was the most expensive fragrance last Christmas of any. Like even Donatella Versace didn't have one that was $1,500.
So did they have an instant delivery and ask you to take 800 bottles and
No.
Oh boy.
No. And it's on sale right now, actually, for $1,000. So I can fix you right up if you'd like one. But I'll have to show you a picture. It is beautiful. I guess it was so unexpected. You know what I mean? Because I'm thinking $34.95 right there. That's mine.
Hey, I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum. I think the folks on the line, if you've been with Avon a while, you'll say, I can't believe he just said that. So we live down here in Naples, Florida, and Jackie still uses Anu. I still use my Mesmerize for Men, and all sorts of stuff. We get it at a flea market right down the road. That's where our Avon representative is. And every time Jackie goes, I'm like, oh God, I cringed because of all the shots. Flea markets are no good. Flea markets are good. Flea markets are no. And we get ours from a flea market right now. Good price too.
It's been up and down all over the place with the whole flea market issue, as you know.
I know.
Did you know I sold at the flea market up here for 7 years, way back in the late 80s?
I
Did you
have
know
a
that?
file. I have an old file with letters like that, complaints from area representatives. Right, that daggone Lisa Wilber is selling the flea market.
Oh, I bet. Oh, so you took it with you. I always suspected that they had like files on us, each of us up there. Yeah, yeah. Although I thought you took it with you because somebody after you, I won't say her name, when she called me to tell me I couldn't bring my kid to the leadership meeting, and she said, I said something about my car, and she said, "Oh, you have a sign on your car?" So I knew you hadn't passed the folder on to her.
I'm only kidding about the folder, by the way, man.
Yeah. Oh, so let's talk about some fun stuff too. Do you remember that time we were in the branch and it was just the division managers, and I don't know how, but I was talking, or I stood up. That's the first time I remember seeing you, I think. And I took the shoes off. I know that got to be a thing.
You just ruined one of my notes. I was going to ask you the question: do you still take your shoes off when you walk out on stage? Because I remember it down at the Newark branch when you did that. But the more powerful impact was when we were at convention or something like that, and you were speaking, and you'd walk out on the stage, and you wouldn't have your shoes on, and the people would just. It was funny, Lisa. The representatives would go wild. The corporate folks would. Oh.
Do you know one of our, I won't say it's a couple, a very successful couple. The last time we were on a trip, he said to me, "I can't believe you don't have shoes on." And I'm like, "I can't believe you thought I would have shoes on. I've known you like 20 years. I've never wore shoes." But he never looked before, I guess, because he's like,
I'm trying to figure out who that might be, but I won't go there. Okay.
"Oh, you know what it is." Well, and then we were over in England. I happened to get that they brought me over there, and you probably don't know this part, but when I got asked to do that, uh, they sent me over there like first class and everything. I had a hotel room with 2 bathrooms, and I was the whole time I was thinking to myself, when they find out it's just me, they're going to bill me for this. You know what I mean?
By the
But
way,
then,
there was one thing the company did well, and that was, in my opinion anyway, from a recognition standpoint. And when we brought people on trips, they didn't go on the cheap. As a matter of fact, it was, we didn't stay in places like that, but we wanted to make sure that the people we were bringing in, especially if they were one of our representatives, really were in good spots. And, I watched you and others, the folks, the seniors who just were so successful. You really did the little things for your people, whether it was at a local President's Club event. So I know some folks would get a limousine to pick up their top sellers and make sure they all
Ellen Mason, she's still in.
exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Out on
she's
Long
still
Island.
in.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, at the senior level, at the corporate level, if you will, that's sometimes you forget about those things, but when you do them, they're much appreciated. And for folks that are running big businesses like everybody on this call, it's just a reminder that your people crave that kind of recognition too. And if it's a room with 2 bathrooms in it that's impressing somebody, it's only a couple of shekels more that you're putting out of your pocket, and the return's going to be tremendous on that. So yeah, I do remember you coming over there, and we brought Lisa Wilber on a number of trips for us to speak, and that's why I was going to ask you about the shoes, because never did you walk on stage with your shoes on. It was always without them, and it was always something that I came to expect. So I would never say to you, "How come you don't have shoes on? How come you do have shoes on?"
What was the name of the guy, the big guy? I want to say Gil somebody, but what was his name? He was ahead of Asia or something. But he was there, and they were all saying to me, "You need to, yeah." button up, and so I'm thinking, oh, I don't think I better do the shoe thing. And then I ran into you, and we sat and had a drink at the bar, whatever we were doing.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you said to me, unsolicited, are you going to do the shoe thing? And I thought, oh, I was not going to do the shoe thing because of that one guy. And you're like, I already told him you were doing it. So I did it. Yeah. Yeah. And people that were there still say that to me. That's what they remember. That's funny.
Well, Lisa, it's just like anything else. You get something that's it sends a message. Your message was very clear. You were Lisa Wilber. You were from New Hampshire. You ran a business in a simple way. You were there for your family, and you were there also for the people in your organization. You weren't there to put on airs. You weren't going to, but just the mere fact that you were doing that, you were putting on your own kind of airs, which is what you were trying to suggest to the people. Here's who I am. If you want to be with me, I'm going to lead you down a road that's going to make you make some money, have some fun. And I'll tell the folks, when Lisa asked me to be on the call, I thought, oh my God, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? She said, no, we're just going to have fun. To me, you can talk about the things over 35 years ago. That's fun. That's the kind of stuff that was the foundational stuff that helped me in my career, and certainly you in your career business too. So thank you, Lisa Wilber.
Well, thank you.
I don't know that I would have thanked you after some of those phone calls back in the day, but I thank you now.
That's why I thought you got assigned to me, because you got all the
No.
hand slapping phone calls.
No.
Yeah, and by the way, everybody doesn't know this, but when you and I first got in the green room in StreamYard, the first thing I said was, I didn't get thrown out. I'm still in the game. Because I knew that would be your number one question.
No. I follow you. I get your Christmas card every year, the multi pictures. So I get the whole year in
the
pictures.
snapshot,
Yeah,
the snapshot of what's going on.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, the trips and stuff. I was thinking you must have a different view on the trips than we do, because we pretty much went to have fun where you had to work, but we still got to go to a lot of fun places.
Yeah, we did, and it's funny. They were work. Boy, there was a lot of work that went into putting them on. But I have to tell you that of all the trips, and some folks on the phone know that on the stream know that I was in China for 18 months and had a chance to work globally, a lot of different countries, recognition trips, watching representatives who were successful. The thing, you may think this is strange, but the thing in the U.S., the thing that I always look forward to, and it was not work, was women of enterprise. And I can tell you that that's when it began, way back in the early days. It was much bigger than just Avon-centric. It was the Small Business Association of America. And it was at the Waldorf, and it was this grandiose thing. But when we brought it in-house, boy, oh boy, that was the highlight for me. That wasn't work. And little anecdote, I think you may know this. I got a call from, I got a letter, and then subsequently had a call with Irma Skaggs' daughter.
Yes.
Irma
I was
Skaggs.
so happy to talk to her, by the way. She called me too. I gave her your number.
Yeah, I know you did. And then I gave her Brian's number.
Oh,
Because,
nice.
and you sitting in those rooms when Irma, who was the quintessential woman of enterprise at Avon, the memories of her, and when I ran the Midwest and was out in Chicago, oh boy, my assistant would say, Irma Skaggs on the phone, and I would pick it up right away. Yes, Irma. What can I do
Yes,
for you?
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I was afraid of her like I'm afraid of. I was afraid of her like I'm afraid of my mother. She may be 4 foot tall.
Well, I told her daughter.
Yells.
I told her daughter, and her daughter chuckled and sent me a subsequent letter. I said, when Irma walked in the room, it was like the Pope walked in. Everybody was just kind of like, "Oh my God, what is it? What's it?" But back to your point, though, those big events, yeah, they will work, but I will tell you, we set the tone with the conventions that we began and PRPC trips. I don't know what they're called now, but back in the day, that's what they were called. I will tell you that you were exhausted when you left, but to see the representatives get the just due that they have from a recognition standpoint, from a reward standpoint. That's what made our jobs very enriching. Really did.
You know what's neat? You may not have known this. I didn't know this until a little while ago. My mother had actually not flown on a plane until she went on an Avon trip.
Well,
Isn't that unbelievable?
I remember Virginia being on those trips, and I also remember you were on the vanguard of a lot of changes in Avon back in your day, and one of them was being able to bring children on trips. I remember some of those early battles, and I'm sure it's evolved now. No, but those were the things that were cutting edge at the time. And
no, it's the other way around. They're not. They're back to not allowing.
Sorry, I don't know.
No, well, see, you know what's different though is I've realized over time, when you guys didn't allow it, even on your watch, there was some years where it wasn't allowed somehow.
Right. Yep.
There was still an underground of kids there. Just
There's
because
no
you
doubt.
didn't allow it doesn't mean they weren't there. So that's what we all end up doing. It was like the underground kid network, and we'd all chip in on the babysitter and stuff. So,
Lisa,
and now the kids are older.
We did know that. And,
you did.
There was one, the most infamous one I had. I can still see her and her husband sitting in their living room. They sent their son and daughter on
instead
of them to New Orleans.
Oh, I remember that.
And I'll tell you what, boy, it hit the fan. I mean, you can't keep that quiet. So here they come, knocking on the door. Did you know that I'm like, oh God. No, I didn't know. We had to send them home, and the mom and dad were upset. That was the one that said, I went, you know what, we got to change this thing. We got to allow kids to come under guide, but anyway. That was a hard one. They
drama.
Were teenagers too. They were teenagers
right.
too, and everybody saw them in the bar having a soda pop, you know.
the drama of it all.
Oh, the drama, right.
You know what's funny is my kid now acts like me taking him traveling is a big imposition. Like I forced it upon him at an early and I'm like, oh, I feel bad. He also likes ramen now. So I'm like, well, you know what? That's all going to work out because when you're paying your own bills, traveling pretty much is going to be out the window. You're going to need it for all that ramen you're eating.
Exactly right.
But yeah, that first trip, I don't know. You called me and Teresa called me that first summer. We were having a leadership meeting in Las Vegas. It was. Yeah, and they're like, you have to go to this. And I'm like, listen, I got a 2-month-old and I'm in over my head. I just can't do anything. And you both talked me into it. And Teresa said, we'll bring a crib down to the meeting room. And you did. The baby was there during the meeting. And everybody had pictures with the baby. It was hilarious. But I was really lucky that I had that happen during the time you guys were receptive. Because
you mentioned Teresa Fagara. I mean, she was one of the ones. She brought a different perspective. She brought one that she had come from another company, and for some of us that had grown up only in Avon, you kind of get set in the ways. But I remember that trip. I remember a lot of the trips too. It's funny.
What was your favorite?
If it's from a representative standpoint, I thought that the Hawaii trips were always very special because it was one, very rarely did a top performer or a top leadership representative turn down a Hawaii trip. And if you remember back in the day, that was probably just about the outer limits to where we would go. I mean, because, traveling out of country, the passport thing and all that was a difficult thing, but Hawaii's were good. From a district manager standpoint, my name's Angelo Rossi. So when we went to Rome, that was very special to me. But I would say there wasn't a trip that was a bad trip. The only one that we took huge heat on was, I think it was 2003, District Circle of Excellence was supposed to be in Madrid, Spain. And 3 weeks before Circle, there was the big explosion in the train
Oh.
station and all that. They told Americans not to travel. So we ended up taking them to Phoenix, Arizona. So the folks that worked all year on going to Madrid or Barcelona,
Ooh.
wherever we Madrid.
Oh, I go to Phoenix.
Arizona. They were happy. But the trips are all good, Lisa. And I'm sure even today, even under the new management, my guess is trips are still good.
We're working for a Hawaii trip right now.
Oh, very good.
Right. So now you can tell me the real reason. What is the real reason back then? Was it the expense? Why was that the furthest we would go? Hawaii. Why didn't we go to Europe? You said passports, but what was the real reason?
No. Quite frankly,
Was it
that
money?
was one of the. No, it wasn't money because quite frankly, you could based on bundling of airfares and stuff like that, hotel, the negotiations we would do with vendors, there was never an issue of dollars and cents. It really was two things. First of all, from the more and more we had representatives who may not have had the appropriate documentation.
Okay.
And they were top sellers. We knew that. We did not want to put them in a situation where they wouldn't be able to be recognized. And if they went somewhere where going through immigration was required, that would be a problem.
Right.
And then secondly, there were some insurance considerations in that day that probably made us take pause, but it was never money. It was just a matter of going to a foreign land with people who weren't employees or independent contractors, and an insurance calculation that was included in that, as I recall. But the immigration thing played a part in it, especially in certain parts of the country.
And that's a nice percentage of the business too.
Well, it was, because remember, in those days, in the 90s and early 2000s, our businesses down in Texas along the border, Arizona, Southern California, they were just massive businesses.
Yeah.
And, I think we had some folks who may not have had the appropriate documentation. They may have had certain visa qualifications that they were in possession of, but still couldn't travel internationally. So those are some of the reasons back then, Lisa. It really wasn't about money.
And see, I didn't know that all this time.
Yeah.
I thought you guys didn't want to spend the money. I thought it was money.
Well, a lot of times, it's hard to say that because then all of a sudden people, well, you're the reason we're not going to, or man,
Right. Right. Well, and isn't that true with so many things though? Like lately we've had a couple people that had their accounts closed, and of course corporate can't tell us what happened because they can't do that. I happen to know a couple of them, but everybody's talking like they had no reason. But the company wouldn't do that for no reason because they are in business to make money. So that's hard when they can't tell.
It's so funny. You're absolutely right. From a protection and HR standpoint, you can't. It's I'm in the community I'm in. I'm the president of the board here after serving 5 years.
Shocking.
More pro bono work, but the reason I raise it is because we're a community, 750 homes. It's very nice, couple golf courses, blah blah blah, and very successful people live here. Are successful, but it's inevitable that you're going to have a situation where you just can't tell people what went on. Well, why was that person's membership suspended? Well, can't tell you, and because if they heard that, the people would just scream and yell, you can't say that about me. Or if an associate, one of the employees of our club, is let go for reasons other than they wanted to go. You just can't say
it. Yeah, you can't.
Was it something I said? Was it something I said?
No, that was my phone.
Is there somebody calling to say, get him off of there?
No.
Right. Representatives, there were situations that always arose where we couldn't say the reasons why, and it was about confidentiality. It really was. Yeah. No differently than in folks on the line. They're downline organizations. You're not going to say something disparaging about somebody who was removed from the company. It's not who we are.
So almost always it's going to be a business decision almost always.
Absolutely.
It's going to be.
Absolutely.
Teresa Paul wanted me to remind you, Teresa Paul, you know Teresa,
Yeah.
of course you do, about the 2013 luau where you guys didn't pay for booze. Oh, big heavy sigh from Angie. Oh, we fixed that problem though. Her son, I gave him some moolah and he went up to the Red Dot store and fixed us up that day.
That was my last Avon trip.
Oh, that's
The one
right.
Teresa's talking about. We were in
2013.
Hawaii. As a
But we
matter of
didn't know
fact,
it. Yeah, we didn't
that's
know it at that point, right? We didn't know
no,
you were. Yeah,
no.
we didn't know.
Matter of fact, I didn't know it at that time either.
Oh, oh,
If you remember back in that time, Jorge Martinez Quiroga it had been announced that he was leaving and this new guy was coming in. And I met him actually on the phone from the hotel in Hawaii, the Hilton.
oh, wow.
He was having a meeting in New York and I was in Hawaii. So it was, I introduced myself and I'm sitting on a recognition trip in Hawaii. So, and that was right around, it was late June, early July, as I recall. And by September, I was
Well,
done.
and they usually, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but corporate changes people all the time. And they don't say, well, 2 weeks from now you're going. They pretty much give you a box and say, well, it's been nice, but it's over. Here's your box, fill your
Avon,
stuff.
we really,
They didn't.
if that happened at Avon, it was because you did something pretty egregious. With me,
Oh, okay.
oh yeah,
No,
no,
I
no,
thought
no,
I thought that happened everywhere at corporations where they
no,
just
no.
took
You
your
know what?
teeth.
I found out Labor Day weekend that year, 13, that I was going to be leaving, and I stayed on to help the transition and
Oh,
do the
nice.
nice things in transition until the end of the year. So Avon rarely threw somebody out the door. At the most senior levels, it usually happened only because you didn't want somebody getting information, having access to files and stuff like that.
Right.
But after 30 years for me, um, you know, I was going to celebrate my 30th anniversary in October, and my guess is they really didn't want to throw somebody out the door shy of their 30th anniversary. Just saying.
Well, and from our side, we don't ever. Matter of fact, that's why I say about my husband, I released him to move on to another opportunity, because that's what we're told when corporate people leave. We're never told whether they jumped or were pushed, and so yeah. Oh, and let me remind you too. One of the last times I saw you at some. Remember, we were sitting with I call him Mitch Rackover, but it's Mitch Rick.
Rich
Rick
Rack,
Mac-
Rich Rack. I'll
I
tell
can't
him you
even say
said
it
it.
right anymore. We were sitting there. It was my birthday, and I'd had a couple glasses of wine, and you asked me about my ex-husband that I hadn't been married to in a while. And I said, well, I don't know if you know this, but there is a statute of limitations on asking about your ex. And the people at the table all went,
I was
yeah,
probably blushing.
were you just giving me a hard time, or you forgot I was divorced? Which was it?
No, no. You mentioned Rich. I have a chance to keep in touch with a lot of the folks that I was fortunate enough to work with, and we mentioned some of the folks earlier, just referencing the Brian Connollys of the world, the John Flemings. These are true icons of Avon, and don't know who's running it now, but my guess is that they're still good-hearted folks. They're just not bringing the legacies and the information and who we were. And those were things that were just so enriching to me in my career of 30 years. And I would just say to the folks on the call, whether you're with Avon or any other company, those are the things that make your downline organization strong, who you are, the vision you have, and how you run your business. I think those folks benefit from that too.
Well, and whether the company chooses to like celebrate Mrs. Albee or not, which they do still say something.
Do
They
they?
gave
Oh,
the charms. They don't do the statue still. The last one they did, they said the artist died, but I don't know if that's the case because sometimes it's Finn. Right, but
so can I ask you a question? This is a question out of ignorance. I
yeah,
mentioned Women of Enterprise earlier. Yes, still have Women of Enterprise?
no. They changed it to it's not called that anymore. They changed it to include couples and men. So it's I think it's not it may be a Spirit of Avon or no, it's not. Maybe I think it's National Spirit or something. It's just not Woman of Enterprise. Yeah. And well and I do want to tell you that you do not know what it meant to me when you came back from China. And I was so shook up because I was one of three Women of
I remember.
Enterprise on
Oh,
my
I
year.
remember.
And and you know, when you said to me, I'm sorry that happened, that made it all right for me.
I
That's all you
remember
had to
that.
say. I was happy once you said that, believe it or not.
And we did go back to one, didn't we?
Yes, it's one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You know, it was funny because Maria is the one that called to tell me I got it. And it was funny, she called me on the phone and I had, I don't want to say I wanted that award, but it was something that you know, you aspire to as a representative. And she said,
Absolutely.
yeah, she said to me, I'm so happy to tell you that you're one of the Women of Enterprise this year. And I went, say what? I'm like, excuse me? And I thought at that moment, I had to make the decision that in years to come, no one would know whether there was just me or there was 3 or 6
That's
of us.
exactly it.
So
Exactly.
I was going to be able to use it on my resume. I was going to enjoy it. So I just made that decision. I was just going to enjoy it, go with it. But it was heartbreaking. But
So Lisa, yeah, I remember. So on the business, is Avon still operating 26 campaigns a year? Is it the
yes,
same kind of drill?
well, no, we're 26 campaigns. We still have that, but you can order anytime during the campaign. We're no longer do the mail plan schedule.
Hmm, that makes
So
sense.
you can
It's a
order
better way of working
anytime.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like me, I place a couple orders a campaign. Usually, I order on day one to make sure I get what I want, and then order again when I have some more orders that customers want in a hurry. Um, Me and a lot of representatives have a lot of customers that ship direct. So they order on my website and it goes right to their house.
Oh, great.
So
And it's
that's nice.
still, is it all come out of Zanesville, Ohio, out of the big facility out there?
Yes, and I think they have the Miami Sales Center still.
Ah, okay.
And they have some little new stores that are called 1886 Studios, I think. Some people may want to chime in here because I live so far out in the woods, these things don't affect me. So I don't know. There's one in LA, I think, but of course, nothing anywhere near here. So
How did COVID affect your business, Lisa, if at all?
it was funny. Briefly, they didn't realize they could be classified as essential. So they actually shut down for 3 days. And those were 3 of the longest days of my life
Hmm.
because I potentially was going to have no check. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be horrible here.
Yeah.
And then 3 days went by and they went, oh, wait a minute, we can be essential. And the machine started back up. So we had a couple scary campaigns when the word didn't get around that we could do business still. I don't think things like they didn't take off bigger. Some companies had that happen,
Yeah.
but we chugged right along. We didn't lose a huge ton of ground, so we've chugged right along for
Your
sure.
business, your business is still national?
Oh yeah, yeah. And do you remember how hard I fought? I know you do for the online appointments. Yeah, but you know why I did that? I know you probably got so sick of hearing from me back then.
It was a big
I
deal
knew I
for us.
could. I knew I couldn't compete with people outside of my area if I didn't have online appointments. To me, I just knew that there's no way that I'm going to be in the top anything unless I can have online appointments.
You
So
know,
that
it's
was it.
Here's another little known fact. You may or may not have known this, but building on online appointments, one of the things we tried so hard to do and just couldn't get it done was to be like other companies and be able to go cross country also. I mean, not cross US, but
Oh,
international.
right.
And
And
you know,
now that's
people,
probably not ever going to happen because,
no, well, for sure. I
yeah,
mean, because it's so disconnected right now. But you
right.
know, the reason was most of take Mary Kay for example. Their compensation model was the same in any country they went to. So in other words, you know, the IT support wasn't so disconnected because you had the same comp model. Avon had different comp models in different countries, so therefore, you know, there was no way they could, at the time, there was no way you could make sure that if Lisa Wilber appointed somebody or had somebody began a downline in China, there would be no way to be able to link the compensation model that you were familiar with. And then for you, if you're running a downline that had, you know, leaders in 15 countries under 15 different comp models, how are you going to get compensated?
Right.
So it was a shame because we really thought that was one thing that would take the earnings of leaders to a far greater position because folks, you had people in other countries. And needless to say, folks in other countries weren't really pleased with thinking that an Avon US leader would be coming into their country. But we never got it done. That was a disappointment. But it built off of the whole concept of online appointments because we couldn't do online appointments and do it wherever. Gosh, you remember back in the day when you first started, you were given a territory map. And God help you, Lisa Wilber, if you went outside that territory and you sold to a customer out there because you were going to get
Yeah.
your hand slapped. But
Oh,
how we
absolutely. That was a
evolved from
complaint. That was a complaint about the car. They said other people
absolutely.
outside the territory are going to see your car and they
And
might
call
order
that
from
number.
you.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. But those are memories that I think back to those days. And if we could have only done some things back then, maybe it's a moot point at this, maybe Avon would have gone down a different path in those late 2000s and into the teens because the path that it went down, you know, and I'm happy that I asked you earlier when we were in the green room if earnings were still there because that was really what it was all about. It was about earnings for representatives. And I'm glad the new company still has an earning proposition for you and for other folks on the call. But, you know, I think we lost a lot when we went from what was back in 05, 04, almost a $2 billion sales, $2 billion in sales company here. My understanding is that it's a very small portion of that right now. And you've lost the leverage of a global company, et cetera, et cetera. So those are things that is water under the bridge, quite frankly. But you think back to the things that could have happened differently back when we were trying to do things, just didn't happen. And it's the one disappointment I look back on. But you know what? Life goes on. Life is beautiful right now. A lot of blessings. And I don't think a whole lot about that. But since we're talking about it as friends, those are some of the things that they still weigh heavily on you sometimes.
Well, I wouldn't worry too bad. Most of us are still here. Most of us are still slugging it out.
Oh, that's good.
and,
I'm happy
and
to hear
and like
that.
I
That is
said,
fantastic.
even during this whole the shutdown, the craziness, all of that stuff, I still, on whole, earn more than just about anybody that I know. So,
Nice.
so I mean that's we didn't take a big hit as far as I still live in the same house. I'm driving the same cars. I didn't lose anything, and I consider that a win to be self-employed this long without having to have a major lifestyle cut. So I'm still happy.
That's great. You deserve it. You've been at this since mid 80s. Is that correct?
Yeah, I joined actually, I joined on Guam and
That's
moved
right.
over and re-signed up a couple times because I didn't know you could transfer. So this year they actually gave me a fancy watch. They actually gave me a fancy watch. I was pretty stunned that the when I got it, I looked it up online.
That's great.
It's like an expensive one, but they had me for 35 years, and actually it's a little bit more than that, but that's, yeah, 35. I must have been a
Wow.
wee child when I signed up, since I'm only 36 now, right? Yeah. Yeah. For some reason, because you're like the guidance counselor coach thing, I thought that you were older than me by more years than you are. We're closer in age than I thought.
I am not touching that. I am not touching that. We'll be 71. It's okay. I'm not touching anything. Let's
No,
go.
I
My
was just
numbers, that's all.
I was just thinking, you must have thought though when you first, what I remember you telling me too is that they had considered getting rid of leadership and that I wouldn't leave it alone because I was sending you guys my newsletter. You're like a dog with a bone. You just won't leave it alone. And I'm sitting up in New Hampshire, had no idea that it was even in jeopardy.
Well,
Oh,
it really wasn't, because the other dog with a bone was John Fleming, and there was no way that once John got into our company, what a great hire that was when he brought the whole concept, and then just in the early 90s, put it on his shoulders, and it really was a one-man show. He and Bill Singleton for a while, and Vondell, of course, just from the very beginning. So, yeah, that you weren't the only dog with a bone, Lisa.
so guess who's on the show next week, next Monday?
Who was that?
John Fleming.
Oh,
He
well,
agreed to come on.
that's fantastic. Well, make sure that give my best to John. And again, it's funny, in our early days when John was in leadership, and then we both became regional vice presidents just about the same time. I had Newark, he had Pasadena. The guy always won. I mean, Pasadena was always Avon West, and we just got so tired. Like, oh my God, there he's again. We were constantly doing this.
Remember
But
though, the
then,
Wild Wild West. The Wild
oh,
Wild West.
stop. But anyway, but my point is, then John and I, we worked in New York together. And that begat a friendship and a partnership that lasted from the early 2000s well into both of us leaving the company. But you look back on people who meant a lot to Avon and in our trajectory up. You mentioned Preston, and of course, Jim was the one that really took us down the road of Andrea Jung coming on board, and women in leadership. Jim was really the one that began that whole thing. And in this country, people like Brian Connolly, people like John Fleming, I will tell you that those are the guys. And then, the ladies also that came on later, boy, they changed. Those were our halcyon years back in the early 2000s. And I know earnings were up then, and I think it continued that way. But those are the kind of folks, John Fleming being one of them. If he hadn't come on Avon in the early 90s, we wouldn't have lasted as the entity that we were in direct selling, because we would not have had this multi-level compensation model without John being that dog with a bone, just not letting it go. So I'm playing on next week. And if if he smiles as much as I do, okay?
And yeah, unsurprisingly, he asked me for some bullet points for our discussion.
Oh, no, don't give them to him. You didn't give me any.
Well, I told him casual conversation. And what's the other thing? He wanted me to send him a calendar reminder or something. And I said, I'm really sorry, John, but I'm a solopreneur. I don't even know how to do that. But he wanted some points that were going to come.
Tell him I had a teleprompter. I had prepared notes. I had presidentials that I could read off of. We had scripted. Just tell him that. They'll drive me crazy. Tell him I said hi, please.
He just came out with a book. Did you know that?
I did.
Yeah.
That's the guy. It's in his veins. This is in his veins. You talk about icon, not just in Avon, but in the direct selling business. You say John Fleming, everybody turns their head because they want to know what John thinks. That's great. I'm glad he's on. The folks will enjoy it for those that didn't get to know John real well.
Well, I thank you so much. You know what I wanted to end this on? We're getting on the end time. I need you to back me up on the whole Irma story. Okay, so Irma at Woman of Enterprise, did she or did she not say she wanted to be buried with her trophy?
Yeah, she did.
Every time.
Every time.
You know what?
And
you guys always had her talk and tell us.
We did.
Yes.
She was
And
our Avon Women of Enterprise spokesperson. And I will tell you, you looked around the room, whenever she said it, there wasn't a dry eye in the place, no matter how many times you heard it. Because to her, it was new. It wasn't something that she thought, well, it's a rerun. And she meant it. But God bless her. What a lady. As,
and
by the
when
way, you
they
know,
did.
you other ladies, you are also the people that became the fabric of what Avon Products was in that day and is right now. And, I've been gone for over 7.5 years, but thank you, Lisa Wilber. I'll tell you what, you and a lot of the other folks on the phone, really fond memories of all that we did. And I wish you guys all the best of luck. And hopefully you got a couple nuggets out of this having fun conversation. Tell Fleming, no bullet points. I'm telling you, don't give it to him.
I'm going to tell fun, fun, fun. Those are my bullet points.
There you go. Very good.
Well, thank you so much, Angie. I appreciate it. And one more question. Every guest of mine that comes on has to choose. Do you want brownies, sea salt caramels, or cookies? You get your choice. What
Kind of
sounds good?
cookies. What kind of
Cookies.
cookies?
Oh,
What kind of cookies?
oh, okay. It's there's a mix. It's macadamia nut and chocolate chip, I believe. It's
Cookies.
an assortment. Cookies. Okay. Well, there you go. Cookies it
Thank you.
is. And
Do
if
I
you
do I
just
get a 1099 also with the cookies?
don't tempt me.
Lisa, thank you so much. I'm honored to be on your
Thank
screen
you.
here, and to all the folks out there, good luck.
So just stay right there a minute. I'm going to end it. We'll go back to the green room just for a second and wrap up.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Bye,
Thank you
everybody.
very much.
Thanks.